2021, my first video of the year, and I'm not going to mention last year, the Annus Horribilis. This is all about 5 photographs I took in 2020. Hello there, Happy New Year to you all. Not going to mention last year. Anyway, I didn't take many photographs last year for obvious reasons, and also, I didn't really feel like it. The old mojo went for a wander. But I did take some, and I'm going to just look at 5 that I quite like from that year. And the first one, forgive me, I'm going to look over here because on my monitor that's where it is. I'm going to get this one out of the way because it's that damn tree. The lonely tree at Shimpadan. Good grief. Now, I wouldn't usually take this photograph. I have taken it before for my book, but it was more of an afterthought, really. But on this occasion, I was going to Llanberis, probably for some chips, and it was on one of those occasions where we'd had a lot of rain. So I thought I may as well just go and have a look. So I parked at the lagoons and went over, and yes, the lake was very, very full. Now I think this picture only really works when you've got the full reflection of the tree. But of course that doesn't often happen. It's got to be a lot of rain, the lake's got to be full, and on this occasion it was. So I sat down, and there were some military guys in Canadian canoes doing their thing, and I thought, oh blimey, get out the bloody way with you. I spent about 15 minutes waiting for them, and they did go eventually. So patience was its own reward. Looking at it now, I haven't got the EXIF data to hand, but it looks like I've got a 6-stop filter on there. It was sort of early afternoon at the time. So I waited for all the ripples from the boaters to bugger off and put the 6-stop on, which is the case 6-stop. I would have had the case polarizer as well. It's just cutting through the glare so you can see some of the slate beneath the surface of the water. And I would have put on my custom built case 5-stop grad as well. 30 seconds, 30-second exposure, ISO 100, and I think it's probably f22. So I had lots and lots of dust spots to clear off the photo. But it's quite a nice version of a hoary old subject. But I wouldn't have taken it at all had I not had the camera with me. And it's one of those things where you're glad you did in the end. And I've got another shot coming up like that as well. But that's number 1. The lonely tree of Shimpadan. Coming in at number 4. And these are not in any kind of specific order. They're just as they come. This one. It's the same as the last one in terms of it's just having a camera with you, driving around, no real place to be, no specific plans, and just catching something really off the cuff, which to me, after years of planning photographs to the minutest detail and sitting around for hours and hours, I really like them when they just come quite spontaneously and you're reactive. And this is another one of those. This time, it's from a lay-by. So that's 2 really lazy photographs in a row. But this is a lay-by with a difference. And you can find it just near the village, well, it's more of a hamlet, of Nebo, which is high above the Conwy Valley, on the east side of the Conwy Valley, which is like a geological frontier, really, with the valley itself being a major geological fault. To the west, you've got the mountains of Snowdonia. And the east you've got this landscape which is almost Tuscan. It's really beautiful, and the juxtaposition of this rolling farmland with the mountains beyond is quite something. And on this one, near Nebo, there's a little lay-by. and it's got one of the most tremendous roadside views I've ever seen. And it shows you the whole of northern Snowdonia across this lovely, lovely farmland. But on this one, I think I've probably gone to about 70mm just to capture my home mountain of Moel Shabod. And the light was just lovely. The sheep were grouped nicely. That was nice of them. They're not usually so compliant. And there's just a little bit of mist around Shabod. And this view really means a lot to me because it kind of puts where I live into perspective. I can see it in context. As I sit here now in this farmhouse, I've got quite a nice view outside, looking over to the Gwydir forest, and I can see the Caneddau peeping over. But you can't see much more. It's like you're surrounded by trees and you've got no real sense of how the house sits in the landscape. But from here, I can sort of see how it works, and to see home from that kind of viewpoint is quite unusual, unless you live in the hills. I'm blathering on. Oh, who cares? Who cares? It's a nice shot. Try and find it. See if you can try and find the lay-by. You will not be disappointed. It's great for sunrises. Number 3. I can't believe it, I've done it again. That's 3 in a trot now, which are really lazy photographs, because this one must be, blimey, maybe 100 metres away from the road. Anyway, this one's about the slate. Now, Dinorwig Slate Quarries has recently become a mecca for photographers. To me, I first got to know it about 16 years ago when I did my first rock climb there. In Daly's Hole, actually. It was a VS4C called Zambezi. I can remember struggling up it, and I was actually wearing a hat just like this at the time because I quite fancied myself as Don Willans. I've actually put on the girth now, so I'm getting there. But alas, my climbing skills aren't quite up to scratch, and they never will be. Anyway, I like Dinorwig, but to me it's like a grave. It's a very dark and frightening place, and the cultural references as well are really important to me, so I don't really go there to photograph as such. Across the valley, the other side of Llanberis, is Glynhronwy. Now that's another magnificent quarry, but not quite on the scale of Dinorwig. But there's one scene in particular which I'd seen shot by Richard Childs and my great friend Greg Whitton. It's the land that God forgot, or otherwise known as Film Set Quarry. And it's a lovely great big hole. Some rock pinnacles sticking up out the middle of it. You've got the Pass of Llanberis behind the Glyderau and Yr. And in autumn, you've got these wonderful birches which just give you some great colour. So, luckily, I live very close, 20-minute drive, so I had to come back 2 days to get this shot. And I really like this one because it's not my usual thing. I wouldn't usually go to these places for photography. But after the first day there, and I chanced upon it, just roaming around, I said, oh yeah, that's that place what Richard and Greg have shot. So I thought I'll have a go. And I got a really nice shot of it, but I weren't quite satisfied because I didn't like the sky. I was a little bit late in the day, so I wasn't getting anything light-wise on the foreground or the pinnacle. So I came back the next day, waited around for a bit, got the shot, and off I went. But I'm sure you'll agree, it's a fabulous scene. But if you do go there to shoot it, just be careful. The path is a little bit exposed and slippery getting to this particular viewpoint, so just watch yourselves. Alright? Right, now this is more like it. A proper mountain photograph. And this was taken maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I was with my good friend Vicky. And she's like a lucky charm to me, that girl. She always drags me out the house when I can't be bothered because I look outside and the weather's a bit gloomy and it's like, oh, do I really want to be going up a mountain in this crap weather? Anyway, she makes sure that I do. She drags me out the house. And 9 times out of 10, we get to the top and great things happen. Tryfan. temperature inversion not too long ago. Shabod, which I've got a photo from coming up. And this one from Cadair Idris, a brilliant mountain. Not quite the bottom of Snowdonia, that's the Tarrans in the Dovey Valley. But I suppose you could say that Cadair is where the volcanic drama of the north gives way to the rolling countryside of the south and mid Wales. Anyway, back to the photograph. We went up the Minforth path, and most people do the Minforth path in a clockwise direction, but I like to do it anti-clockwise. I like to go up Mynydd Moel first, which is a soul-destroying slog, but it gets the hard work out of the way at the start of the day, and then you're free to roam on the heights of Cadair, which is great. But on this particular day it was pretty gloomy, and the slog up Mynydd Moel just went on and on and on and on. And because we were in the clag, you just had no idea how far you had to go without consulting the map, but it just went on forever. And then we got onto Mynydd Moel, happy that we were up there because we were bloody knackered we were. The snow was quite wet, you know, and slushy, so it was hard work. And then that thing started to happen where is it my eyes playing tricks on me, or is that a bit of blue up there? Hints of blue would appear and then disappear and tease, and we walked over towards the summit of Cadair Idris, Pen y Gadair, and then it just showed itself through the mist, briefly, and then went. And Vicky turned to me and she said, I told you we were going to get good stuff again, and indeed we did. It was absolutely tremendous. So we went to the top of Pen y Gadair, sat in the hut there. If you stay the night on Cadair Idris, you'll either wake up a madman, a poet, or not at all. So we spent quite a bit of time there. Went down, then up onto Craig Cwm Amach. By now the light was getting really nice. And this kind of photograph, as you'll see, it's a figure in the landscape, if you like, because I write for people like Trail magazine, and apart from traditional landscape studies, I do like figures in the landscape to show a human interest in the landscape, especially mountain landscapes, and also it adds a great scale to things as well. But one of the main things about this type of photography is you've got to be very reactive, and you've got to anticipate. And on this shot in particular, I could see, now we didn't have long left, we probably had about 5 minutes before the sun dipped down behind the intervening hills, so any chance I got for a shot was going to take. So I saw a big pile of light streaking across, and I knew that it would end up on this particular part of the hill. So I said, Vicky, get over there now, strike a bloody pose, and don't move until I tell you. And that's what she did, because she's very compliant. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. She puts up with a lot. But yeah, I shot away, rattled off as many as I could. As you can see, there's a very slight hint of a Brocken Spectre. Now that's my Brocken Spectre. Now, before we got to take this shot, we'd had Brocken Spectres all afternoon once it had cleared, and we were getting pretty bored with them. But they're a wonderful phenomena in the hills. You know, some people go in the mountains for years and years and years and never see them. I've seen millions of the bloody things, but even now when I see them, I can't help but do that. Anyway, I could talk about this all night because it's a fantastic day out. A really, really fantastic day out. Right, number one. And this is the last image I took in 2020. And I took it wasn't quite a week ago. And it's from my home mountain, Moel Shabod, which I really love. That's where my ashes are going when I die, I think. If you're watching this, will you take them up for me? Ta. Anyway, before I start, I will say that we were in lockdown, but I was well within my remit going out on this day and doing this particular walk, as it was straight from my door and I didn't have to go on a road. I just walked out the back and up the hill. So just in case you're wondering, I'd like to clear that up. But anyway, I was with Vicky again, and we went up to Cwm Foel, looking really flipping gloomy, miserable. She said, don't worry, keep the faith. All right, Vicky. So, just about to leave Cumvoyle, and I saw someone else coming across, and it turned out to be my mate Elton and his friend Kat. So we had a nice socially distanced plod up the Dyrthe Ridge, which is a fantastic easy scramble or easy winter climb. And for anyone wanting to get into that kind of thing, it's a really good choice because it's not a committing ridge, but it is quite spectacular, and you can make it as easy or as hard as you like. Anyway, we got to the top of Shabod, and while the view wasn't as extensive as it can be because there was cloud coming in and out, it did make for a dramatic photography, and I trudged over to the western side of the summit plateau to this old fence. And I'd been there about a week before and took a similar photograph, but there wasn't much snow on the hill. So there was none of that lovely rime ice on the fence posts, and the view was tremendous, but maybe you could see a little bit too much. With this one, the Snowdon summit at Wyddfa it's obscured by mist. So what you can see is the fence leading down towards Garnedd Cribau, and you've got Llywedd and Aran. And that's really all the mountains you can see, and they're quite soft, which I like. And a lot of the time in landscape photography, and especially mountain photography, it's about subtraction. Sometimes the whole vista is just so large and spectacular, you're not really sure what you're looking at. But there is a definite subject here, and that's the fence running down to the distant mountains. And when I took this shot, I was balls deep in snow because we didn't need crampons. We had axes and crampons, but we didn't use them because it was just powder. The whole mountain was buried in powder snow. But it looked so pretty. And it was incredibly still up there too. So I could just stand there for 15 minutes. And interestingly on this one too, lately I've not been taking a tripod with me. I used to take one religiously, now I don't really. The only time I regret it is when I want to bracket. But I still attempt to do that, handheld. And sometimes, more often than not, I get away with it. But the freedom of not having the tripod is I've got the camera here, it's ready to get out, and I can just go for it. So this one would have been shot at f11 or f8, possibly. Probably f8 because the background was so soft I didn't really need front to back sharpness. And it was handheld. And when I do hand holding, I usually up the ISO to 400, which on the 60 isn't too bad. It's not incredibly noisy. But this is the shot I got. This is the last one. The final photograph of a year, memorable for all the wrong reasons. And I hope you've enjoyed me going through these photographs and listening to me waffle on. And with that, I'll say Happy New Year to you. I hope things improve. And I'm thinking of starting a Patreon channel, because I'm absolutely skint. I can't get out working in the mountains. What income I've got is very scant, and that's I'm getting no government help. I've got a little bit of magazine work, and that's it at the moment, and things are getting dire. So I was thinking of doing a Patreon. Comment down below if you're interested in that, and hopefully I'll see you all very soon in the hills. Take care.